Okay, continuing on with what we've done in the previous videos, we are now just building, excuse me, building our interview computation. And in so doing, we are telling HotDocs how to construct this document package interview, which again is just going to be a single interview that will drive production of multiple documents. I have a single ask instruction in here for the document selection multiple choice variable that I just created in the previous video. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up another ask instruction, but this is going to be for a dialog that will be common to all of the templates that I could conceivably select as part of this document package. So the next step in the sequence is to ask any common dialog, any dialog that might come up more than once if we were to assemble each of these individually, and of course get individual interviews for each of those assembly processes. There is one dialog that's been set up for use in all three of these individual templates, and that is a dialog that just asks for basic client information. That of course is going to be common for all of the documents that we might produce. So what I'm going to do is again create another ask instruction, and then I can either find that dialog here in the list and drag it up. Maybe what I'll do here is filter this list on dialogs so I'm seeing just the dialog components. That client information dialog happens to be at the top of this alphabetized list. I can either drag that up or of course just type that in. And now I've got a second ask instruction for the client information dialog. So if we were to test this briefly, you'll see now two items in the interview outline, not counting, of course, the end of interview item. Here's the multiple choice variable or question that we created. Okay, and I have the ability to select any or all of the documents presented as options. And then here is the client information dialog. So thus far, I've got two items coming up in my interview outline. But of course, there's more to be done. So let's go back to the computation editor. Now it's at this point where we might get a little more specific in what we ask with respect to a given document that may be selected. So let's say now that we've got all of the common information out of the way that we want to ask absolutely, that we want to have come up in every interview. And now we're going to drill down to the dialogues that may need to be asked, but they only need to be asked if, say, a certain document is selected for assembly. And of course, we have in our situation three possibilities: a trust, a will, and or a financial power of attorney. Let's deal with the trust first. And what I'm going to do is just skip a couple of lines here just to kind of make this easier to see, or the overall structure of the interview computation and how it has different sections. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some if logic here, referencing the trust option in the document selection variable. So I'm going to go ahead and put in if document selection, okay, again referencing that multiple choice variable, equals, and then of course I want to make sure that I reference the trust option exactly how it's set up in the multiple choice variable itself. Of course, I could put within quotation marks the word trust and I'd probably be okay since it's a simple enough option. But as a best practice, to reference an option in a multiple choice variable within a script like this, if I hit F5 here with my cursor after the equal sign, I'm going to get a list of all of the options within, in this case, the document selection multiple choice variable. Now, if I just double click on the one that I want here, which is trust, HotDocs automatically puts that within quotation marks. So now I have some if logic that says if the document selection equals trust, then what I can do is set up all of the ask instructions that I will need just for the trust. So it's at this point that I want to ask all of the questions that pertain to the trust, all of the dialogues that I need to bring up for a user to see so that the user can go through all of the necessary questions pertaining to the trust. So I'm going to go ahead and create some ask instructions again here. And in this case, there are 3 dialogues that I want to ask. Obviously, this is a simplified trust. A more comprehensive trust would probably have a lot of other ask instructions, but you'll see I'm going to end up creating just 3 ask instructions for 3 dialogues that I need to come up, constituting the trust part of this interview. And I've got them listed down here, all beginning with the word trust. So I might ask for trust initial information, and then I'll have another ask instruction for the initial trustee, let's say. And then finally, a dialogue asking for specific gifts. So I'm going to ask those 3 dialogues. Okay. And then I'm going to skip a line here and put end if at the end. Got to capitalize it, of course. You'll see why I skip a line here in just a second. Whoops. And then I'm going to go ahead and do basically the same thing for the will and the financial power of attorney. So all I'm doing here is just setting up the specific portions of this document package interview that correspond to the specific documents I may choose to assemble. Okay, and because of course these ask instructions are going to be within if logic, they'll only get asked if I choose that particular document in that initial question that comes up. So again, hitting my F5 key here, I'm going to select will this time to put will in quotation marks there. And then I'm going to go ahead and ask some will specific dialogues. So let's start with monetary gifts, and then we'll go with charitable gifts, and we'll go ahead and ask, this is one that might be conditional by itself depending on whether or not the client has children. We'll just keep it absolute here and just say for the will we want to ask 3 specific dialogues pertaining to gifts and guardianship. Okay, then I'm going to skip a line again. You'll see why I've skipped a line here, because we're going to go ahead and add some things here when we get done with this. Well, let's go ahead and do the final piece pertaining to the financial power of attorney. And then again, hitting my F5 key, I'm going to select financial power of attorney. And now I'm going to ask the power of attorney specific dialogues. So these are going to be, they start with DPOA, standing for durable power of attorney in this case. I'm going to go ahead and ask DPOA information, and then agent information, and then finally something pertaining to optional powers. And then I'll go ahead and tie that off with an end if. You'll see by way of this indicator in brackets where it says text that I've got a valid computation script here. So HotDocs understands what it is that I'm trying to do with this computation script. So we have 2 absolute, or what I'll call absolute ask instructions, meaning these dialogues are going to get asked in every interview. But then we have some conditional logic around some other ask instructions, and of course that logic corresponds to the individual documents that might be selected by the user at the beginning of the interview.